Hi, I'm Joe Justice. I have an office in Tokyo and an office in Hawaii. I go back and forth for time zone reasons. Um, from those two places, I'm typically able to serve 3/4 of the world's time zones. So going back and forth between those two, I can basically teach in every time zone. Currently, online interaction is pretty good. So I'm able to, at least online, collaborate with the whole world by going back and forth between those two offices. What I'm showing here is a gamification of a Scrum Master course, and this is what I spend most of my time doing now. We visit these 8 islands and play games on each island. It covers a lot more content than is required of a Scrum Master class. It actually covers a lot of what I learned working in Tesla, which is very different than any agility I'd ever experienced before. There are no product owners, there are no Scrum Masters, there's no big room planning, there's no PSIs, there's no trains. It's really different. That said, it's the fastest growing company of its type on planet Earth. Here, I'll zoom in. Tesla right now is in the news for 2 really bad things. One, employee overwork, and maybe even more than that, employee insensitivity, employee, I don't know, irrelevance. I mean, it's quite intense. And for being at a record low stock price in the case of Tesla, even at a record low stock price, Tesla is worth 250% more than Toyota, 2.5 times more than Toyota, and that's at a record low. Almost exactly a year ago from now, Tesla was worth almost 5 times as much as Toyota. That said, some of these other companies are worth less than they were a year ago as well, not just Tesla. So Tesla is still worth approximately as much as the next 10 automakers combined. So how do we resolve this? How do we resolve that all of the Musk companies are far and away the most financially successful of their type? SpaceX is the most financially successful aerospace company ever in the history of engineering. Tesla is the most financially successful car company ever in the history of actually any company. Not even a software company has grown as fast as Tesla ever, including Henry Ford and the legendary Model T. Tesla is growing faster than that and continues to grow faster than that. So how do we resolve that with these information about how currently employees in Twitter are suffering, is how they're describing it. And some say they're really excited. They like a good hackathon, and work is like a good hackathon. And some are saying, I was given a choice, go hardcore, which they view as work 100-hour weeks or leave the company. You know, it's either you go all the way or you're out. So on one hand, the Musk companies are phenomenally successful. And on another hand, some people are horrified by them. I'll get back to that. I think that's actually going to be a useful thread for our talk. But before that, I'll say I still learned a lot about project management in the Musk companies, whether there's overwork or not, and there is. I learned a lot about project management, and that's incorporated in this gamified course, which is still called a certified Scrum Master course, but it actually goes way past what's required of a certified Scrum Master course. I do some mid-level training. If this is the foundation level training, I then do a course on contracts and budgeting and finances. How do you do accounting when you replan every 2 weeks or faster, legally all around the world? How do you do that legally all around the world? What does budgeting looks like? I mean, an annual budget or longer made no sense going into 2020. So what do you do? How do you sign a supplier contract when you expect your supplier to improve the product delivered every week based on feedback of the product in use? That's what the mid-level course is. The mid-level course happens to grant a certified Scrum product owner. It does cover the requirements, but it's mostly about that, about agile finance, agile budgeting. some about legal interaction, how to work legally. And then I realized I couldn't actually fit the Musk model into those existing courses. And this is what Almedina and I had the opportunity to do together. It's called Joe DX. I really wanted to call it Musk model because that's what it is. It's what is project management in a Musk company. But I realized I don't think I understood all of it. I learned a lot working for Elon Musk, but I don't think I got it all. I might need to go back someday, but I wanted to make available what I did understand. It was already, I thought, really exciting. So I didn't think it was appropriate to call it the Musk model yet. I don't think I knew it all. So I called it Joe DX. The DX is for digital transformation. This course is now being taught all across Mercedes-Benz. They're really serious about trying to figure out what agile project management for hardware is. And I'm grateful they post about it publicly. The CIO and then the CEO of Mercedes-Benz different regions are posting about this. I'm very grateful. And Almedina and I did this class together. Thank you so much. It's again gamified. It's 12 hexagons, like a game board, going through different aspects of how you would work in a Musk company when there aren't Scrum Masters anymore. There aren't product owners anymore. There aren't PSIs anymore. There aren't trains anymore. It's different than Agile I've ever experienced anywhere else. This is the landscape of what I can easily talk with you about. So at some point, I'm hoping this becomes Q&A. What I'd like to jump to is there's this little boat I show people here when they're about to take a coffee break in the Scrum Master class, the Agile coffee break boat. And this stays on the screen for 15 minutes while everybody can get a coffee. And I encourage everyone to get some exercise and take notes, play with their kids, play with their pets, whatever they can do. This information on the screen is exactly what people are part of, what people are really upset about now hearing from Twitter. And I'm concerned about it too. And here's my actual daily schedule in many companies that were starting Agile when I was the first person in the company to start Agile. And the middle schedule is my actual schedule when I was a Scrum Master or later an Agile coach or whatever. In many companies that had established agility already, they were running smoothly. And at the bottom is my actual daily schedule when I was working for Elon Musk. At 4 a.m., I would enter Tesla every day. I'd walk to the areas that sent me, this is a hardware organization, there's software and hardware, but I'd walk to the area that sent parts to where I'd worked yesterday. If I'd been in a software area yesterday, I'd go to the area that I'd consumed software from, because we connect to each other. And I would take notes, and I'd possibly join that group doing group work, doing ensemble work or mob. At 5 a.m., I would tag in. I would choose a location, and I would signal to the AI. There's AI all around the factory. I'd signal to the AI that I was starting work. And here's where I was. I'd wave my badge in front of one of the cameras. That was tag in. And somebody leaving would hand me whatever tool they were using. A laptop, a piece of welding equipment, robotic controls, whatever it was they were using. And I would take it and I would tag in, and I'd join a running ensemble, a running piece of group work. I would then do pairing, swarming, mobbing, ensemble work until 4 p.m. Until at least 4 p.m. About every 15 minutes, I would look up at these big monitors everywhere to see, am I in the highest value place? These big monitors were a lot like an open space agenda. No one called it open space that I ever heard while I was in Tesla. And even when I started the Agile program in Tesla and started using Agile words, it wasn't until after I left Tesla, or actually while I was talking outside of the company, that I started to use the word open space. But it was very similar to open space, whatever word we would use. So I would look at the essentially agenda, we just call them the boards, to see where is all the several thousand people working that are on shift right now. There are 110,000 Tesla employees. Where are they all working? Should I go? Because there's no manager telling anyone where to go. It's a self-organized system guided by these boards that say, here's the work that's going on. Are you in the right place? At 5 p.m., I would tag out, and I'd hand whatever tool I was using at that time to someone tagging in. Until 7 p.m., I'd follow the parts I worked on that day, or the software or whatever, to wherever it was going in the buildings. And I'd take notes of where the work I was doing went. And then I would possibly join their mob, join their ensemble work, to arrive with the parts I'd worked on earlier that day, and then work with them in the next area. And at 7 p.m., I'd head home. Many days I'd work 4 a.m. to 7 p.m. Now, this is part of what people are so shocked about at Twitter. And first, I'll say this is nothing new for Elon. So I don't know why people are just suddenly getting shocked now. Like this has been going on since 2006 at least, probably earlier than that, when Musk writes about Zip 2. It sounds like it was exactly this mode of working. But I'll put it more broadly. First, this works. This works really effectively. It makes a ton of money for the companies. So what do we do about that? And I actually have an idea. And I imagine some of you do too. So first, this does work. These companies are bizarrely successful at an unheard of modern level. When we look at Giga Berlin, that's the fastest a factory has been built in the EU in modern times by a factor of 10x. Like no one is coming even close. By a decimal point, no one's coming even close. So it works. What do we do about that? Because a concern I have is, if this works so well, does that mean we all have to do it or we're irrelevant? Well, I'm a really fit person and I had trouble. I did it, but I couldn't do anything else. Like you have days off, and I like to go camping. I like to go hiking. I like to go rock climbing. I couldn't. If I did those things, I was too tired to keep up the schedule. I could keep up the schedule, but not be intense on the off days. It's essentially like being on a pro sports team. Like this is your job, right? And you can be religious or philosophical, but if you want another intense physical hobby, you can't play at this level. Now, people do it all the time. In fact, we expect this of footballers and soccer players all around the world. And we don't get mad at their coaches for overwork. We simply expect them to practice every day. And on season, we expect 2-a-days or 3-a-days is what they're called, which is this schedule, basically. Like this is a schedule for human success. And we've known about it since the Greek era, if not before. Wild animals live this way. Like this is how life works. So again, what do we do? Because I don't think everyone should have to work this way or be relevant. I know many people who have maybe 2 or even 1 really good, clear thinking hour a day. And they do. They have 1 or 2 really good, clear thinking hour a day. And I want to work with them. But what about the other hours where they don't think as clearly? Maybe they have a medical issue. Maybe it's age-based, whatever it is. Maybe they have other commitments. But I want to be able to work with them that 1 or 2 hours a day. So since retiring from Tesla in 2020, I've gone through all my notes I took every morning and every afternoon, and I would journal each morning, and I would journal each evening before I'd go to bed. And I also took a lot of video and a lot of photo while I was working in Tesla, and those I don't release. I wait until Tesla releases a photo or video, and then I talk about it. But I can check myself. Is that really what I experienced? When I go back through my videos. And I have some ideas. And I think it might match what many Agilists here already know. What works so well about this schedule? It's not physical training like what we expect of some football players or soccer players, right? So you don't have to do the long hours for physical training. What about this is working? And I've got an idea, and I think it's product inertia. Product inertia. The development never stops. And I think this is what's working. If there's a piece of software, or if there's a car part or a piece of the factory system, it never stops being changed. There's always a group of people there, an ensemble or a swarm. It's very agile, developing it, testing it, changing it, developing it. They never stop. And that is what's important. There's no individual ownership. There can't be, because when you leave at 5 p.m. or 7 p.m., you know whatever you were working on is going to be different when you come back, and not just a little different. It's going to be as different as it was all day when you were working on it. So this concept of inertia creates shared ownership, which as Agilists has some advantages that's been quantified by the XP community. So you have shared ownership and you have non-stop development. Well, if that's what's working, you could do it with 3 8-hour shifts. You don't have to do it with 2 12 or more hour shifts. In fact, you could do it with several 3-hour shifts, and or even less. And I actually would really like to try that. And that's part of what I mean when I say Joe DX. It's not exactly the way Elon's running a company. I show exactly what I was able to learn, but then I also provide my suggestions since I've had time to think. What could allow people of many different health levels, many different time levels, to be as productive or potentially more productive? Because what happens if you're in a company trying to compete against Tesla? What happens if you're in Mercedes-Benz? What happens if you're in Skoda, Seat, Renault, BMW, Ford, or GM? Do you have to adopt this work ethic? I hope not. I hope not everyone has to do this. I mean, everyone who plays soccer, I hope they don't have to be a pro. I hope some people can play soccer just because they like it, right? So if you're in another company, maybe we can do it with rolling 3-hour shifts. Now, what's the downside? The downside is there are increased context switches. If you have 2 12 or more hour shifts, you have 1 context switch a day for yourself, and it's when you tag out and go home. The product experiences 2 context switches a day. In the case of Tesla, that's at 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. There's 2 context switches as the majority teams tag in, tag out. If you have more shorter shifts, you have more context switches for yourself and the product. So how do you reduce the penalty of context switching? And I think that's where Tesla AI actually helps. And I think other companies can do that too. You have a system constantly giving you feedback, whoever's working this area, giving feedback on how that development could be progressing. It's not so good as to do the development for you, but it's constantly scoring how the development is going. And it's not scoring you, it's scoring the product. So if I was in the paint area, and we were painting cars, and we were writing software to help paint cars, and we were mixing chemicals to help paint cars, and we were working with suppliers to better paint cars. Unlike most companies, we're changing that process every day, constantly, trying to make it faster, cheaper, more environmentally friendly, last longer, higher levels of luster and beauty. It's constantly being changed, whereas most companies set their process for paint and it stays for years. This is why in the supply chain crunch, Tesla grew, and every other car company on earth sold less cars. And it's because when you get a different supply, you need to change process. Well, in Tesla, the processes change every day. So it's not a disruption to get a new supply. It's normal. Whereas in Toyota, you have minimal variance, right? You have the engineering set to get exactly the same supply, exactly the same paint. Well, what happens if you can't get that same paint? Now you have this new waterfall process, which in Toyota's case is about 2.5 years long, to dial in their machines, to make their machines precise again using that new supply. Well, what if you only have 1 month of that new kind of paint? It really caused panic for every other company, but for Tesla, it was normal. Well, the reason you can change constantly is you have machine learning constantly giving you feedback. Have you tried this? This paint is behaving this way. Did you notice? The car quality went up in the last 2 minutes. And so you get like a score, not you, but the car quality gets a score, a luster score, a paint quality score. It makes it like playing a video game. Video games now, modern video games mostly, are very easy to experiment to learn. None of them come with a rule book anymore. The first level of the game is typically a level where you can try almost anything and the game won't immediately end. It'll give you some feedback, like a good sound or stars or a score number, if you do something the game likes. And it'll make a bad sound or show you like a red halo or red crown if you do something the game doesn't like. It's like that in Tesla. You can walk up to almost any area in these facilities and try something, and the AIs will give you positive feedback. It's usually a heat map, but it makes the heat map of whatever the thing you're working with, software or part. It makes the heat map show higher quality levels of different types or lower quality levels of different types. And that lets you experiment in real time. Also, Tesla is actually a really loving culture. It's intense. They expect you to be intense. Once you agree to that level of intensity, it's extremely supportive. You can make mistakes all the time and not be fired. You will be lovingly accepted. So if you paint a car wrong and it needs to be repainted, that's fine. No one worries about it. Even if you paint the car so badly, it has to be scrapped. It has to be recycled. That's fine. The company's investing in you learning the processes. The idea is if you scrap 10 cars in a row, but on the 11th car, you make some small improvement. So every car afterwards is 10 seconds faster in paint and has a higher level of luster. That's worth millions of euro a year to Tesla, way more than those 10 cars that were scrapped by you learning. So it's fine. It's actually an extremely high forgiveness culture. Again, I'd liken it to a pro sport where you think of these people that are training all day and they've changed their diet for the sport, they've changed their lifestyle for the sport. And yet in the team, many times there's an extreme level of love for each other, of trust, of respect. That's actually what I experienced working in Tesla. And when I visited SpaceX, it seemed very similar. So what I'll say about the work environment is, one, it is successful, whether we want to work that way or not, it creates results. Two, the level of psychological safety and respect for each other, as I experienced it, was extremely high. And I think part of the reason is because there's something helping you score. And in Tesla's case, it's AI. It's helping track what's going well and what's not going well. And again, it's not tracking you, it's tracking the product. In the Musk companies, you don't have a boss. Your boss is data. These feedback loops from the machines to help you decide how to improve yourself. Even so, I don't think we all need to work like you do in a Musk company. And I think I'd love to experiment with more companies on trying to create other aspects of what works in Tesla, but on short shifts, like 3 8-hour shifts or 4 6-hour shifts. Okay, I've shared some information. I'll zoom back out. here's the gamification of the level 1 course. And here's the gamification of the level 2 course, finances and contracts. And executives have the highest stress job of all, so their course is the most gamified. It's as close to Mario Brothers as I can get without copyright infringement. It actually just barely is not copyright infringement. Everything here actually fits under parody or is unique enough, but it's close. And then there's Joe DX, or basically the Musk model, and it's 12 steps. With that, I'd like to open up the floor to conversation. And I'd like to talk about what's going on in agility these days and what it actually meant to me working for Elon. I did found the Agile practice at Tesla, and I did operate it from the global headquarters in Fremont, California. But to be honest, what was already there was so much more advanced than any Agile I've ever seen. I brought very little to Tesla, maybe 3 practices I brought. Everything else I learned there. It was shockingly fast. With that, please use the chat or unmute and let's attempt interaction. Unfortunately, no. So what happens is you're essentially getting different supplies every 24 hours or less, whether you like it or not. So what that means is your process needs to be high variably tolerant, needs to love variability if you want to thrive now. And all automakers, for example, are experiencing this, whether they want to or not. Now, interestingly, Tesla works with many traditional suppliers like Bosch out of Germany. And Bosch delivers to Tesla new products, changed, improved products every 1 week. Bosch is on a 1-week rhythm to Tesla. So even some traditional suppliers have Agile pieces that will do this. Now, the next part is about 24 hours or less. This is why Tesla and SpaceX and the Boring Company and OpenAI and Neuralink are famously vertically integrated. They make a lot of their own supply so that they can change it every 24 hours or less. They don't want to. The Musk companies prefer to work with suppliers. However, many of their suppliers are not yet capable of 24-hour or less change cycles. As a result, Tesla has to bring it in-house to meet their service level agreement, their speed of change. Now, some do it, like Bosch, a week or less. Actually, Tesla still has many suppliers, as does SpaceX, and the suppliers they do have are on 1 week or less change cycles. But when Tesla cannot find a supplier that will sign a contract that they will continue improving the product, that they'll use an Agile lifecycle, then Tesla vertically integrates. They bring the part in-house. At least project management, for us that are interested in Scrum and Agile, that making sure we can incorporate changes quickly is how we deal with the supply chain crunch, because we're getting different product, whether we wanted it or not. So making sure our processes are highly change tolerant. If we're planning on a quarterly PSI, that's difficult because some of our supply is changing faster than a PSI. So what do, right? We need some faster cadence to accept change than we were used to before the supply chain crunch. In human open space, for those of us who have attended an open space event, maybe an open space conference, in human open space, anyone can propose an agenda item, a topic, but they need to explain it to other people. So many times there's a microphone and you say, "Hi, I'm Joe Justice. My open space topic is how open space works at Tesla. Anyone who wants to teach me about that or hear what I have to say about that, I'll be in room 2A at 9 a.m. And I put it on the agenda, room 2A, 9 a.m. Joe Justice wants to learn from you and share what Joe knows about open space at Tesla. So the definition of ready for an open space topic is you're able to explain it to the other humans there. And in a short amount of time. You're often given a time box like 15 seconds because there's a line of people to explain agenda items. So that's the definition of ready in a traditional open space. In Tesla, the open space topics are work items, just as the question said, like it's what you'll work on. So it'd be like, hi, I'm Joe Justice. I have an idea to improve the efficiency of the heat pump. Anyone who wants to teach me how to improve the efficiency of the heat pump or learn my ideas and work with me on it, I'll be at column. There's labeled columns is how you find people in these huge buildings. I'll be at column 2A at 9 a.m. Right, that'd be the idea. Well, instead of holding a microphone, because there's 110,000 employees, you use an app on your phone, and the app has a template. I'm sure originally it was like an internal Twitter, where you just free typed, any text. You said like, I'm Joe Justice. I want to improve the efficiency of the heat pump. I'll be at column 2A at 9 a.m. I'm sure it was like that before. By the time I got into Tesla, it was an app with a template, and you would say, what's the title of what you care about? What KPI do you think it would impact? You also have an ability to propose a new KPI, right? So you could say, I have a whole new concept. Here's a new KPI and a new plan to affect that. Or you could say, of the existing KPIs, I have a project to try to improve that KPI. And you'd say, here's where I'm going to be working. In the Musk companies, all work is physically on site, even software. It's all physically on site. So in that case, you do say physically, where will they find you? And that's part of the template, right? And then you submit it from the app, and then that's ranked on the Justice Board, which is the list of all available projects you could join. Basically, this is what's funded. This is what is the company spending money on. These are all the funded projects. And something really useful the Tesla AI does is it estimates the real-time cost of each of these. It's not perfect, but it's not that bad. So you have this guess, a machine-driven guess, how much money each of these projects are spending in real time. And you can see the overall financial picture of the company. This is actually really powerful in terms of an employee learning what's important to the company and learning how big a spend you can make. Because you can say these projects are all spending a huge amount of money. So if I have a good idea, I can see it's okay to spend a huge amount of money. It's very empowering. It's very transparent. Now, the Justice Board is an area that I've made many updates to the concept of it since leaving Tesla. And so I named it after myself. Sorry, please forgive me. Please forgive me. In Tesla, it was just called the board. We didn't have a name for it. And it didn't show an all-up view of all projects. It showed one at a time, and it would rotate through, or you could use an app on your phone and you could select to see. I realized since leaving Tesla, it's much easier if you have an all-up view. And a few other changes, color coding, if a project is recruiting people, or if the project thinks they're full, it's a different color. I added that afterwards. Some of those things help. Basically, stuff that we've learned in the law of open space, I've incorporated with what I observed at Tesla, and some of it made it better. Yeah, there's no, that's a really important concept, I think, which is why when I talk about the digital systems in Tesla, I don't call it digital management. I call it digital self-management, or DSM, because you're using it for yourself. There's no manager in an office watching everybody's score and making decisions about them. That would be digital management. You're using digitalization to get real-time feedback on how people are doing. And then you talk to the poor performers or congratulate the high performers. There's no human watching everybody. Instead, you see your effect on the product and you use that to learn. And it doesn't affect your promotion ability or anything. It doesn't affect your salary. It doesn't affect you. And there's a really good and really bad part about this. The really good part is you learn super fast. There's extremely low pressure because it's like a game. You see the car paint quality is measured to be higher quality. I'm doing great. And it's like playing a game where you see score points going up. The downside is you are invisible. Really, no one's watching you. Even the machine isn't watching you. Like, you could be someone else and you know it, right? You are invisible. So if you do something really good and the score goes way up, the paint quality becomes by measure much more beautiful. And there is a beauty measure of paint, by the way. I spent a lot of time in paint. Red paint in particular was the bottleneck for a lot of the time I was in Tesla. And I would go to the bottleneck. And for much of the time I was in Tesla, it was paint, red paint specifically. But I did work or visit every single position in Tesla and take notes on every single one. But many of my stories, many of the ensembles I were in were paint. But no one cares that it's you. If you have a big success, people will high five each other or whatever they like. Some people don't like to high five, but whatever it is, you'll have your celebration moment, and that's it. There's no promotion. There's no nothing. Like if you scrap a car, also there's no, like if a car is so badly experimented, it has to be melted down and recycled. Nothing bad happens. You don't lower your score or anything. So you're very free, but you're invisible. You really have to learn to self-motivate. There's no coach on the side saying, good job. Like, you're just on the field by yourself, kind of. You're in a mob, you're in a team, but it feels very invisible. And that is something that was really difficult for me, for my personality type. When I did something really bad, I wanted people to say, it's okay. And when I did something really good, I wanted people to say, great job. And your immediate mob does that. And sometimes an ensemble near you, but 1 minute later, it's over. Like, that event is as if it never happened. The cars are all painted 10 seconds faster. That's the new normal. That's the new baseline. Underneath the executive board, I have some information about that. What Musk does when Musk takes over management of a company. We're seeing this right now in Twitter. This is how each Musk company was started. Musk sets a 1,000-year goal for the company. And that goal is attempted to be something intrinsically motivating, intrinsically valuable. For Tesla, it's transition human civilization to sustainable energy. Well, that's an interesting goal. If you're an environmentalist, that's motivating. And hopefully it'll take less than 1,000 years. But the goal is, the attempt of the goal is that it will outlast all of our lives. So you're thinking in a longer term. Every company is managed this way. For SpaceX, it's spread the light of consciousness out among the stars. So basically inhabit other planets, other solar systems, other galaxies, if we can. Spread the light of consciousness out among the stars. That will take thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And if you like that goal, it's a very motivating place to work. Musk set a 1,000-year goal for Twitter, and it was a really different goal than almost all the employees had before. So that really frustrated the existing employees, and I understand that on a very human level. Musk said the 1,000-year goal for Twitter is democracy. Before that, many of the employees thought it's social media driven by advertising. Nothing wrong with that. Many of the employees thought my job is to make better ad revenue and make a more engaging platform I'm competing with TikTok. This is an ad-driven social media platform. Musk said, I'm interested in Twitter because I think it could be democracy. And a lot of the people in Twitter didn't have an interest in that goal. So you have a changing of the employees when the goal changes. That makes sense for any company. New leadership comes in, they change the goal of the company. Many people don't like the new goal, so they attempt to change jobs. Some new people come in. So what Musk does to keep motivation high is be very mission driven. And these missions are huge. There's very little email in Tesla, almost none. It's almost all instant message, like really Apple iPhone instant messenger. Or if you use an Android, there's an encrypted app called Signal. And some of the iPhone users use it too. That's most of the communication. There's almost no email. The very few emails I did get were about the mission. When I was working in Fremont, California, at that time it was Tesla headquarters, Los Angeles area had the highest recorded temperature ever. It was 120 degrees Fahrenheit in Los Angeles. For Celsius users, that's over 40. What is that, like 44? I mean, it's really hot. That's like hot bath hot outside. And it had been so hot, there were wildfires. So there was so much smoke, we were told by the government of the area, please stay inside, breathe filtered air. And this was during coronavirus pandemic. It was 2020. So it's stay inside, don't go outside. It's too smoky. The smoke was so intense, it made my eyes sting. Like it was thick smoke. Sunsets were a strange color because of so many particles in the air from all the wildfires. And it was record hot where elderly and sensitive people were dying if their air conditioner stopped working. It was a bizarre circumstance. Musk sent an email saying, we might be running out of time. We need to transition the world to sustainable energy. We need to reduce by even 1 day today the number of days until the last internal combustion engine is sold. That's the type of email all staff gets. And if you're an environmentalist, that's incredibly motivating. I was on fire that day as an environmentalist. I was completely shook. I was saying, this is why I'm alive, is to try to help this. It's very different than most companies where you know your profits are being used to buy someone else a bigger boat. Musk owns no house. Musk owns no boat. Musk sleeps in the factory. So it's very motivating. You actually believe it's about the mission, or I do. This is a deep topic. What I will say is this course, all 12 steps here, digital self-management is one of the 12 steps. The course is hosted next on Europe time in January and then April. Some of you might be interested. Some of you, your companies might even pay for you to attend. But I'll try to give a short answer already. It's not one AI. It's not that awesome yet. It's hundreds of small specific AIs. And they basically each answer one question. So there's an AI that answers the question, is it a good idea for you to take vacation now? In most companies, you ask a human that question. Can I take vacation? Is it a good idea for me to take vacation? Or if you're the boss, you guess, is this a good time for me to take vacation? And then still usually ask your teams, is this an all right time for me to take vacation? In the Musk companies, you ask an app. There's an app for that. And it's not perfect, but it has to be at least as good as the previous method, humans making the decision. And that's measured by how many humans complain saying, I should have gotten my vacation request approved. Why wasn't I? And if that rate is not higher than before when humans were making the decision, then the app is successful. Now that app's data set is how many humans complain saying my request should have been approved and it wasn't. That's its data set. And then humans also massage the data to try to increase its accuracy. The type of data depends on what the app is doing. If the app is measuring paint quality, its data set is a very detailed imaging scan of every car as they're made. And actually, I have a picture of that one. This is a picture that was released. Every Tesla, as it's made, has an image taken of all the painted surfaces at half a wavelength of light. It's an absurdly high resolution. And any defects, and it's a deeper conversation how those defects are sensed, but any defect is made visible to you. So you can see what any of the microscopic defects are, or areas for improvement. And that AI, that's one AI is measuring paint quality. Its data set is these images of every car. So it gets thousands of these a day between Shanghai, Giga Brandenburg, and its data set is very clean because it's taken in-house and it's already cataloged because you create your own data set. So there's many different apps, and the quality of the AI is almost only determined by the quality of its data, its training data. Some of you maybe knew that already, some of you maybe didn't. The quality of the data is the factor almost entirely for the quality of the AI. So if we start with test-driven development, you're also growing your AI data set. And Tesla is absolutely a test-driven development company, as is SpaceX. And Twitter was not. And Twitter is now shifting engineering culture to be a TDD company, which is very frustrating to some people who didn't like that engineering style. There's not a product backlog. There's that 1,000-year goal. In fact, there's really only a doing column. It's not even a Kanban board anymore. There's nothing stopping you from making a product backlog if you wanted to, but the pace of change is so fast. There are long lead projects. There are multiple year projects, and they will make something more like a backlog. Many of the projects are executed extremely quickly, bizarrely fast, less than a day. So there's less value in putting, here's what I think we'll do next. You focus on what you're doing now, and you learn so much while you're doing that. By the time you're ready for the next item, you could only write it at that time. You will have just learned enough to propose the next item. So for many groups, there's only a doing column. There's only a whip column. There's not any queue before. You could create a queue before, but when you're delivering faster than once a day, there seems to be less value in that. So it's a factor of speed. I would say most other companies are releasing in longer than once a day, especially in hardware. It's usually more like a year or 2 years or 5 years, and that's okay. So yes, in those cases, there probably should be a backlog. And then as we move up the pace of innovation ladder, I think the backlogs will get smaller, looser, and eventually go away.